Hey guys, good morning and welcome. Thank you guys for joining us. This is Conrad coming again this morning on the Road Less Traveled podcast. As always, excited to be here. Looking forward to what the day has to offer and looking forward to getting to do what we do. And first day of TLM, always an exciting time as we get this journey kicked off. There's so much that transpires in those events in terms of releasing and developing and filling up and all the different things that happen. So we're excited for that. But this morning, I'm excited for the call. This morning's subject, and I know this is a controversial subject, but I feel the need to share anyway. I will. And I trust that you can take it and discover things by it without being judgmental or picking holes in it, because I'm going to talk about the importance of earning money. I'm going to use a biblical story, though, in the process of that. You know, of course, I could point out many things. Let no man seek his own wealth, but every man another's wealth. Let no man seek his own, but every man another's wealth. I could talk about 3 John 1:2, and you know, the list goes on of things that we could point out. Now, finances, I might even point out that Christ chose a lot of businessmen and doctors and people of maybe wealth financially and influential that he had chosen as his disciples. But the story I'd like to share this morning is the story of a man that got beat up by robbers, everything taken from him, stripped and laying along the road to die. It does say something to the extent that some of the church leaders came along and seen him there, and they just walked to the other side of the road and pretended not to see him and walked on by. 2 different ones did. It goes on to share that there was a Samaritan, which was looked down upon by the others as a lesser person because they weren't living up to maybe the standards of what the church thought they should, and they were just a lesser group of people in their opinion. Anyway, it does say that the Samaritan came along and seen this person laying along the road, and it goes on to suggest that, well, let me ask you guys a question. When the Samaritan seen this person that was beat up, didn't he, the first thing that he did, he just stopped and prayed for him that he would be healed? Actually, no, I don't think that's what he did. I think it says that he helped him up on his animal. I think it goes on to say that he took him to the hospital and prayed that somebody would pay for his bills. No, not exactly. Matter of fact, what he does say is that he paid for the expenses. He had the money to pay for it, and he paid it. In other words, if this Samaritan, which seemed to be a lesser person by the righteous and the so-called church, was a lesser person, yet he was the one that showed mercy and had the finances to help this person. You see, my friends, the point that I'm making, if he had not have had the money, he could not have done what he did. It does specifically point out that he paid for it and even paid more, or said, if there's more expenses, let me know, I'll come back and pay for that too. He obviously had money. Now, when I encourage you to do well financially, I'm not talking about you going out buying a Ferrari or some crazy expensive vehicle so you can ride around the countryside so people can look at that and admire what you're driving. I'm not suggesting that you build a very expensive house. See, I don't ride around in expensive vehicles, nor do I have the most expensive house in the county. I don't need that. I believe that earning money is very important. You know, and those that think they're better than the rest because they're poor, I understand that I've been poor too. So I understand what it's like to be there. I'm not looking down on any person that isn't financially well off. I want you to know my heart goes out to you. I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to wonder where the next dollar is going to come from and if I'm going to be able to make my payments and pay the insurance and be able to use the vehicle, because I may not even have insurance on it anymore and can't legally go on the road and shouldn't go on the road without insurance. I know what those things are like. I know what it's about to be under financial strain. So I'm not looking down on any person that does not have finances. I want you to hear me. If I was, I'd be riding around in an expensive vehicle. As it is, I probably ride around in vehicles much lesser expensive than most of those that have borrowed money for their vehicles. It's okay. Not my problem. It's none of my business what you do. Entirely your business. My point is, I understand. And I'm right there along there with you. But I want to help you move up from that. I want you first help your mindset understand that if you don't have the money, you can't pick that person up along the road and pay for his hospital bill. Is that correct? The answer is yes. That is true. So my challenge is the world is not all about money. I know there's already people thinking that, and it's okay. I agree with you. It's not all about money. Salvation is a free gift. But he does give us an example of the people that were given talents, which in that case it was referring to as money. Jesus shared that story. By the way, those are parables that Jesus shared. Very powerful parables. They revolve around money. When you talk about the story of the talents, it does go on to say that when the master came back and this guy that had buried his talent, it does go on to say to throw him in the outer darkness. The unprofitable, it says the unprofitable servant, to throw him out in the outer darkness. So I think it's important that we strive to be profitable. Now, I'm not asking you to be greedy. I want you to hear me. I'm not talking about being greedy. And I'm not talking about being filthy rich at all. Well, there is no such thing as filthy rich. The filth comes from the mind. If a person is filthy in his mind and he's rich, I guess he'd be filthy rich. But the filth comes from the mind. There is no such thing as being filthy rich. I apologize about using that example. That example is loosely thrown around. Yet we admire the wealth that Solomon had, and David and Abraham, and the list goes on. Job, very wealthy gentlemen, men of God. However, my challenge for you is to release the idea that you're better because you have not, but simultaneously start developing that ability to take the talents that you are given and use it to create something that you can use to serve others with, whatever it might be. Yes, praying for a person that is sick is very important. It's very important to pray for those. I'm not saying that that man was more righteous because he had the money to pay for his hospital bill and offer to come back. He was not more righteous, not even close, than the person that would have just prayed for him. But it was still, if he had not have had the money, he could not have done that. And it specifically points that out in the scripture in that story. And I think oftentimes when those stories are shared, they're specific about different small details like that. They can easily be overlooked and not recognized as the significance of what it has to offer. You see, the scripture goes on to say, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And I know that when we have negative thought processes around money, it's very hard to ever be financially free or to have the finances to do the things you would like to do. One last story of a person I worked with myself personally for many years. He got to where finances became more readily available for him. And one day he shared with me, and he was just taken back by it. He goes, you know, my son had an issue where his car broke down. He needed almost $800 to fix it. For many years, the thought of having $800 in my account seemed foreign. But that day, I was able to say, yes, I do have the money. However, before he got back with him to tell him that he had the money to support him, he already had figured something out that he was able to get his vehicle fixed. They were stranded along the road. He got it fixed and moved on. But he just shared, you know, the idea that he had the money for the first time in his life to take care of something of that nature just awestruck him. It was just like, that was an experience he had never in his entire life, and he was in his middle 50s, experience. And so it was such a liberating, a feeling of confidence, a feeling of accomplishment, achievement, of growth, of moving up, of being all that he was called to be. It was an experience that he couldn't explain. He basically said it was something that was worth experiencing for the first time in his entire adult life. The challenge for us all is, if you have the ability to do well, use it. Don't not use it because of some myth that not having makes one a better person. I know, I keep going back to that. Many of you guys, that's not your problem at all, not even close. But there are people out there that have that issue. They view a person with less as more righteous than a person with more. Now, there are times where that is the truth, but it has nothing to do with their money. You see, when we see a person that has wealth and he does things wrong, we will oftentimes say, yeah, look at that guy. He was so rich, and look what he did. Look at that broke person that broke into somebody's house and killed somebody just to steal something. You do not blame being broke on what he did. But when a wealthy person does something wrong, you blame the wealth for what he did. And let me give you this. as in closing of this, if you think, if we blame wealth for people doing things wrong, I want to tell you that the areas that have the most hate and crime going on is in the most impoverished areas in the United States. But if you go out of the United States, you go to Colombia, maybe Venezuela, the list goes on of places you could go to where extreme poverty is, the filth and the ungodliness that goes on in those areas is unfathomable. India, poverty that the people here cannot possibly fathom happens in India. People that there would consider themselves having a home here in the United States would be considered homeless, totally homeless. They'd be it's just we can't fathom what's going on there. But some of the filth that goes on and worshiping idols and I can't go down that path, but it's crazy some of the things that happen in the most impoverished areas. So again, before you go saying all Al is doing is telling you to be rich, I'm not. I'm telling you to use your talents that you were given and expand it, grow it, develop it. Some of those people that are going to be at TLM are seeking to do just that, to be all they can be, to use that and exploit on all their gifts and talents to be able to be as productive and do as well as possible, to take that and double their talents, turn it into more. So I'm proud of you guys. Looking forward to working with an amazing group today. And for the rest of you guys, I'm looking forward to meeting you as we travel around the country in different places, different areas. If you're listening in for the first time this morning, this is a leadership call that's been going on over 12 years. We're looking also, if you would like, feel free to call into corporate and make a request. There's a new book out called Don't Settle for Less Than Who You Are. You will find it quite interesting, easy to understand, and principles that will help you shift as you continue your personal growth journey in being all that you can be. With that, guys, have a great day, and do me a favor. Always remember, don't settle for less than who you are. May God bless you.